Jill, you have had a much more varied and storied legal career than most. You worked in government, including as a prosecutor in the Watergate prosecution for the Department of Justice, in Illinois as Solicitor General and Deputy Attorney General in the Chicago Public Schools. You were also a partner in a major Chicago law firm, worked in corporate America for Maytag and Motorola, and in the not-for-profit world for the American Bar Association and as an entrepreneur. Now you're a commentator for MSNBC. What advice do you have for people who feel they may be stuck in a certain track or rut in their careers?
Each job change can be a step up. And there are people who are happy where they are, and I'm not saying you should just move to move. I had one law school classmate who actually, as she progressed through the ranks from misdemeanors to felonies, said, I don't like all the responsibility of prosecuting felonies. I want to go backwards. I could not imagine that for me, but that was good for her, and I say whatever is good for you is good for you, and you should recognize that. You know, when you make a job move, you should think about what have you enjoyed in all of your past jobs, whatever the detail is, and what have you hated? What is it that you would like to avoid? What do you want to maximize? And then when you look at another place of possible employment, think about whether that offers those things. So when I was running the American Bar Association, I realized that I actually liked running an organization. I liked making sure that we had all the right products at the right price so that we could return pro bono services to the public. And that's what led me to decide that I wanted to try for a corporate business position rather than returning to trial law. And for me, it was a great thing, but it took analyzing what are the things I've enjoyed in my career and what are the ones I haven't. So I would say that's a good piece of advice for anyone looking at any potential job.
What caused you to come out of retirement and become a commentator for MSNBC?
It is quite remarkable to start a new career, especially one in television, at this stage of my career after retiring. But I actually wrote an op-ed, and one of the networks, actually several of the networks, read the piece and asked me if I could go on air. And so on Monday I went down thinking that it would be a one-time experience. And by the time I finished the segment, I was getting phone calls from every other network saying, we just saw you, we'd love you to be on our show. And it just started until MSNBC offered me a permanent position. And it's just one of those things where I took a course in how to write an op-ed that was called Project Op-Ed, that's intended to try to bring a diverse group of voices to the editorial pages, which are predominantly white males, and they wanted to bring in some women and people of color. And so I took the course, and the course was on a Sunday, May 7th. On Tuesday, May 9th, Comey was fired. And I thought, gee, I just finished this course. I have something to say about that subject. And so I wrote a piece, and it was published that week in the Chicago Tribune, and that's what led to my career.
Jill, you broke a lot of glass ceilings in your career. As the first female prosecutor in a high-profile case, the Watergate prosecution, the first female general counsel of the Army, the first female executive director of the American Bar Association. What advice do you have for women who may feel they don't have as many opportunities as men in the legal field?
If I thought about the things that I have done, I would clearly not have done them. And that's everything from my personal life and my adventure travel to my work environment. I have definitely gone well beyond what I would have been comfortable with. If I had thought about, in fact, going to law school, I probably wouldn't have. If I had realized that there was a quota at Columbia Law School when I went there, 5% of my class was female. Only 5%. And I'm not sure I would have taken on the risk of being the one. It's sort of like being the older child. If you fail at something, then your parents are going to say, well, we can't let the others do it either because they can't do it. And if you're the first woman, you're always afraid that the boss will say, oh, she didn't do a good job, we can't let anyone else try it. You have to be flexible. You have to be willing to take a risk. You have to assess what's important to you, what's important in terms of a specific aspect of the job, and are you willing to take that risk, and do you think you can succeed at it? I think, and this may be particularly true for women, you have to be willing to say, I don't have to meet 100% of the criteria that are set forth for this job for me to be successful in the job. So many women don't go for an opportunity because they think they don't have 100% of the qualifications, where if a man has 1 out of 10, he thinks he's qualified. And all kinds of research proves that that's true, and so I would urge particularly the women who are listening to this that they should take the risk. They should apply for it. If they think the job would be fascinating, if they think it would be challenging, they should go for it. Among my proudest accomplishments are that I have often been followed by another woman. The General Counsel of the Army after me was another woman, which means I didn't make too bad a mess of things as General Counsel of the Army.
Jill, what is your attitude about lawyers and public service?
I think it's very important for lawyers to do pro bono work. Certainly, I was raised to believe that I was very lucky in my life and that I needed to give back to society, and I've tried to do that. I think it's an important element. I think that society is what we contribute to it, and sometimes it pays off. For example, I actually did some pro bono work in immigration law, which now allows me to do commentary on some of the immigration problems that are going on right now in the country. So you never know where it's going to come out in the end, but I did it just because I had the ability to help someone, and I thought it was important. And I think everybody, and it's not just for lawyers, I think that everybody, whether it's serving soup at a soup kitchen, it's just using your skills. So instead of perhaps serving soup at a soup kitchen, you might help them to figure out a way to serve more people more efficiently because of your corporate background. So I think it's important for everyone from whatever their field to do that.
Jill, you became a lawyer when women comprised a very small minority of the legal profession. What sexism and discrimination type obstacles did you have to navigate?
Sexism, to me, incorporates a couple of things. It includes what I would call discrimination. For example, when I first got out of law school, I was told, well, we can't even interview you. You're a woman. Or we can't hire you because everybody else in the office is a man and there's travel involved and we couldn't possibly let you travel with a man. Those were things that people actually said to me, and they were serious. I was asked questions like, what kind of birth control do you use? How many children are you going to have? So it's a long time ago, but it's not ancient history. And so that's what I faced in terms of blatant discrimination. Help wanted ads were still listed as help wanted male, and then there were separate columns for help wanted female. And you could not apply as a woman to a help wanted male, even if you had 100% of the qualifications for that job. Sexism also includes harassment, which is just an unpleasant work environment where women are made fun of, where nude pictures are put up. So it's not so much maybe in a law office, but many women in the workplace face that kind of harassment. And then there is the more direct comments on your clothing. That's certainly something I faced. Newspapers always would talk about my trial performance in terms of Jill today wearing a pink suit. And they never commented on Rick Benveniste, who was one of my partners, saying, today wearing a blue pinstripe suit. That wasn't part of the commentary. Pictures of me were full length, whereas my colleagues were often headshots. So that's a different kind of harassment and problem. I would also find, for example, I wasn't invited to certain meetings because I was a woman. And you have to decide, how do you deal with that? I didn't get my first trial at the Department of Justice for a year. And I didn't realize that all the guys who started with me were starting to try cases. And it took me finally realizing, whoa, wait, I'm still doing appeals, which is where all lawyers start at the department. How come? And I went to my boss and said, how come I'm not trying cases? He said, well, you're a girl and it's organized crime and In a courtroom, you'd be in the room with the mafia. In appeals, it's just the lawyers, and you'd be so much more vulnerable. But I said, what about me didn't you notice when you hired me as a trial attorney? And then I got my first trial. And when I didn't fall apart and the jury didn't attack me and everything went fine, well, the second one was easy. And then after 2, there was no problem. I was fully assigned as a trial attorney. But I had to speak up. So I think women need to be a little bit astute and a little bit aware and have to know whether you confront it hostilely, which is, I would say, very seldom an effective measure, or whether you handle it more gently. I found I wasn't invited to some meetings at Motorola, and I went to my boss and said, I guess you forgot to amend your invite list for senior staff meetings when you hired me for your senior staff. And he actually said, no, the guys aren't comfortable having a woman at these meetings. And so obviously I could have said, that's illegal, because by then it was. But I said, well, what are you doing to solve this problem? How are you going to fix this? And he said, I'm working on it. And I waited another 2 weeks, and he said, oh, there's another meeting. Don't be upset. You're not invited. And then I waited another week, and I went to him and I said, okay, enough's enough. I'm coming to the next meeting, and you just have to make it work. And I did, and of course nothing happened. Everything was fine. There was no problem. But I think a gentle approach sometimes is better. I think we all have to try what's comfortable for ourselves.
You have said that civil discourse is not very civil these days, particularly in politics. Why is that?
During Watergate, there were 3 networks, and they all had the same facts. So you could debate the meaning of facts, but you didn't debate whether it was a fact. There's been a multiplication of media outlets, and as a result, people are reading only their own point of view. They're living in a bubble, and they aren't getting diverse opinions. Now, if you watch Fox News, you have a different set of facts than if you watch MSNBC, and that's a dangerous situation. It's compounded by the gerrymandered districts that we now have, and people don't have to compromise, and congressmen cannot compromise because their boundaries of their district are drawn in a way that they reflect only one point of view. So you don't have the kind of bipartisan compromise that we used to have in politics. And the solution to that is, number one, we have to find ways to eliminate gerrymandering. I'm on the board of the Better Government Association, and it's one of our goals to improve government through having fair districts drawn that represent equal people and equal numbers. And I think everyone should sign on to petitions to get fair districting put into place in their states.
What is the importance of mentoring in a lawyer's career?
I did have a fabulous mentor, Charles Ruff, who was my boss at the organized crime section, maybe the smartest person I've ever met in my whole life. He was fabulous. I think it's important to be a mentor, and I have gotten a lot out of the people I have mentored in the sense of learning from them. And I'm very proud of a lot of the people I mentored. One of them is now head of the ACLU in Chicago. So they have gone on to do really wonderful, good things. I'm very proud of that.
Jill, what makes you hopeful about the future of the legal profession in our society?
I think that our training as lawyers makes us able to do a lot of things, whether it is switch to corporate or switch to politics. It makes us very effective spokespeople for various causes. It trains us how to analyze issues. And I am very hopeful that that kind of training can be useful to society as a whole if people will take a look at the broader picture. And that goes back to what we were talking about in the beginning, which is when I first graduated, a lot of people went to a law firm and stayed at that firm for 30 years. That was it. Nowadays, people move from firm to firm, and they bring different skill sets, and they bring different ideas. And I think it enhances the law firm. I think it enhances the world. And I just think our training is really good, whether it's through writing or through other things.